Hi, welcome back. This is the second video of 7 where we're going to design and assemble a chess set, and then we're going to try and see how we could play against a friend in Onshape. In the first video, we looked at making the 2D sketching, using the 2D sketching tools, and if you didn't see that one, I suggest you go back because we've got some real fundamentals that are in there. I'm going to jump straight back in to our design, and you will see we started off creating one part called the Queen, and I suggest you start today by making a new part using Create Part Studio, and I'm going to rename this one to be Rook. As we go along, we'll start to build up different parts. Each one of those parts will be a different chess piece, which we'll then put into the assembly at the end. Just as a reminder, we started off in the first video looking at how to use the sketch tools, how to use the mirror tool, and we're going to use some of those tools again, but with a bit more level of detail in them. So we're going to begin by drawing a rook. And to draw the rook, we're going to start with extrude, we're going to chamfer, we're going to fillet, and you'll be able to apply those to other pieces that you're designing later on. I always like to start like I did last time, with left-clicking on the top plane, right-clicking and saying New Sketch. I can either get the top view using the view cube, or I can right-click and say View to Normal Sketch Plane. So now I'm looking right down on top of the sketch plane. I'm going to start today by just drawing a simple circle. In the first video, we just drew them any size we wanted to. Today, we're going to add some dimensions. So I'm going to hover my mouse across the origin. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag and release my mouse. While I've done this, I can type my dimensions straight in. So instead of being 109.016, I can type 50 and hit enter. And now I've got a circle that is 50 millimeters diameter. If I need to change my diameter, I can double click on the diameter, type in a new figure, and it will automatically change for me. And when I'm finished, I can click the green tick to close the sketch. So at the moment, I have a circle that's got no thickness at all. What we're going to do is extrude our circle out. And extruding basically means you're going to turn it from a 2D sketch into a 3D solid. So to do that, I'm going to use this button up here, extrude, and I can also use the shortcut Shift-E. And I'm going to hover over my circle and click on the one I want to create. And you can see it automatically creates my 3-dimensional cylinder. And I can play around with it by pulling there up and down, and you will see over here that the depth of it is changing. You'll also notice a whole load of different tools come up here. And I'd really encourage you to play around with some of these. So for example, I could type my depth in to be 30. I can also look at what happens if I change to make it a symmetric extrude as opposed to just one side. So here you can see I've gone 15 millimeters above the plane and 15 millimeters below. When I'm ready and I'm happy with the size, I can click the green tick to close the extrude toolbar. Now I'm happy with my base, I can start to create another shape on top of it. So to do that, I'm going to sketch on this top face. I'm going to left click on the top face, right click with exactly the same workflow, and click New Sketch. And now I'm going to draw on top of that the circle, again hovering over the origin, dragging it out to the size I want, choosing dimension 45, clicking the green tick on the sketch plane, and then going back to extrude and extruding that one circle up a small amount. In this case, I'm going to say 20. So we can start to, in that way, build up stacks of different designs. I'm going to continue that process on, left click, right click, New Sketch on top. And this time, I'm going to do a slightly smaller one. I'm going to do a 15. 15 looks a bit small. I will escape my circle. Let's change it to 20. Extrude. Add by 30. I'm starting to create something that might look rook-like. But on top of my rook, I want a bit of a bigger top. So this is good, slightly more complicated. So I'm going to left click on the top face, right click, new sketch. And this time I'm going to draw myself a bigger top. In this case, I'm going to choose 52, finish. And now what I'm going to do when I extrude, I'm going to need to make sure I get the outside circle and the inside circle. So I'll click on extrude. You can see if I don't have the inside circle chosen, it's going to end up like so. If I choose the inside circle, it brings up that middle cylinder as well, and now we've got a solid shape on top. If I wanted to unclick them, of course, I could delete face 4. I do actually want to have a fairly hollow top on here, so I'm going to use a different type of extrude now. Instead of adding material, I'm going to remove material. So I'm going to left click on the top, right click, new sketch. I'm going to click on the top now, draw another circle. Let's go 40 millimeters. Finish my sketch, and now when I choose to extrude, instead of adding, I'm going to click the remove button. Okay, the remove will go down, and I can decide how deep I want it to go. In this case, I think it makes sense to go maybe 20. And now you can see I've ended up with my hollow kind of shape on the top. And each time round, if I wanted to, I could go back and edit any of these. So I could right click, edit sketch 4, and change the dimension if I wanted to. We'll look at how to do that in later videos. The last thing we're going to do is remove, or the penultimate thing we're going to do is remove some parts from the top face. And to do that, I'm going to need to draw on some different faces. I'm going to need to draw on the front face and the right face. And I'll show you the process for doing that. First thing is to click on my right face, and if you want to, and it helps you understand, you can just drag your plane up to be bigger. Right click, new sketch, right click, view to normal. In this case, I'm going to choose to draw a rectangle, but not a corner rectangle. I'm going to draw a center point rectangle. I'm going to use the guideline coming up from the origin. I'm going to get up in line-ish. I'm going to dimension this box to be 15 by 15. I'm also going to say D to dimension. I'm going to make sure the middle of that box is exactly 105. That's going to help me out a little bit later on when I'm trying to draw it on the other face. So I've drawn myself a center point rectangle 105 from the bottom and 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters. Then I'll close my sketch. And I'll go and do the same thing on the front face. Left click, make it bigger if you want to, remember. Right click, new sketch. Let's get the front plane. I'm going to do my center point rectangle, shortcut R. I'll draw it anywhere I want to over here and type 15, enter 15. D to dimension. I'm going to draw from the middle of the square to the bottom of the origin, 105. Click. And now you can see what I've got in here are two sketches that I'm going to be able to use as an extrude remove. I'm going to click on that one, say extrude. I'm going to ask it to remove. What I'm going to do is tell it to go symmetric, so it'll go out either direction. It's giving me a red warning at the moment because it's saying it's got nothing to intersect with. And I can either manually drag this out, or I could type in the exact dimension I want. In this case, I'm just going to manually drag it out. Later on, we'll look at why you might use different types of extrudes, but for now, we'll just drag it out manually. Then I'll repeat that process with this sketch. Click on it, tell it to remove symmetrically, and drag it out. Finish my extrude, and now you see I've got something that's looking a bit more rook-like. What we do have now is lots of sharp edges, and on chess pieces you wouldn't normally find these chess pieces. So now we're going to modify our shape using two tools. We're going to use the fillet, which gives us a nice rounded edge, or a chamfer, which gives us a sharper edge. And you can choose whichever one of these you want to do. First thing to do is to click the edge that you want to chamfer or fillet. So in this case, I'm going to look underneath, I'm going to click on the chamfer tool, and I'm going to chamfer the edge that's highlighted. And you can choose how far you want it to go by typing a different dimension. You can play around with whatever works for you. I think that looks quite nice. I'm going to then add some fillets a bit further down, and I'm going to click multiple edges this time. This one, and this one. By clicking multiples, or at the same time, I can round them all the same. You'll notice as I clicked on this one here, it went pink, gave me a warning that something's gone wrong. And what's actually happened is this chamfer is too big and one's run into the other one. So I can solve that in two ways. I can either get rid of the edge, or I can see if I can reduce the distance of the fillet. In this case, that seems to have worked quite nicely. And now I've got a nice rounded shape. I'm just going to add one more fillet onto this edge here. See if I can give it a nice kind of curved shape. Let's see what happens if I go quite big, up to 15. I've got a nice big curve on that shape there. Okay, and I'm looking pretty happy now with my rook piece. At any point, if I want to go back and edit any of these, I can go back and right click and change the size of the fillets, change the sketches if I want to, and you will see that dynamically brings it all the way through into our drawing. So we now have a queen, which was created using 2D sketches, using all the sketch tools that you'd find in the dynamic sketching toolbar. So we use center point, rectangles, circles, arcs. We then created a new part, called it a rook. And this rook was a combination of 2D sketches, extrude add, extrude remove, and also modifying the shapes using the fillet and radius tools. So I encourage you now to go and have a play, see if you could design your own rook. And in the next video, we'll move on to using some more complicated tools.